There's some final reassurance that the Broncos have seemingly put the NFL on notice. This time from the hands of ESPN, where they get great news on their offseason grade. Welcome in Broncos country to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose, and I apologize for my disheveled appearance today. It was a rough morning for me this morning. But on today's episode, we're going to continue on and push along. What was the best Broncos offseason move according to ESPN? Also, huge thank you. We just hit 37,000 subscribers here on the channel, which is my second major milestone. Got to clap it up to you guys. You have been awesome, shelling out for me and Broncos country alike. And also, before we get started, tap that like button for me to show your appreciation if you feel like doing so. And if you don't want to subscribe, that's totally fine as well. All right, ESPN claiming that the Broncos had an A- offseason. So they graded all 32 NFL teams in this most recent article by Seth Walder, who's one of their senior writers there at ESPN. And they listed the Broncos as one of 4 teams that got A grades for the entirety of the offseason. So their requisites, or prerequisites, I should say, were the draft, free agency, and throughout OTAs, what they've kind of monitored on. And they've kind of lumped everything together and talked about the final grade. So let's go with the A grades. Here are the only 4 that received A grades. The Los Angeles Rams got the number 1 A grade. The 49ers with an A-, Arizona Cardinals with an A-, and then there's the Broncos right there sitting at tied for second. Now, the rest of the NFL kind of lumps itself in to the B grade. So the New York Giants, Chargers, Bears, the Kansas City Chiefs came in with a B-, which is really nice to see considering we are probably the team in the AFC West that has the most potential to not only, go from, what were we, second last year or third in the AFC West all the way to the very top. Then, again, more, grades right here. The Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, the Raiders got a B, Cleveland Browns got a B. So most of the NFL sat within this B- to B+ range. And then, of course, the C grades, teams that maybe didn't do as much in the offseason in terms of like free agency, or maybe they didn't have a great draft. Either way, a lot of the really good teams, at least in my opinion, the Vikings last year, the Commanders, the Packers, all are kind of lumping in that C range that they didn't get better, but they didn't really get worse. The only team that actually did piss poor was the New Orleans Saints. They're the only ones that got a D grade. Call it what you will. I don't think the Saints are in for a really good season. They should be in contention for the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 draft. Let's get back on target. So ESPN named one move that they loved for the Broncos. So in this article, they said, here's your grade, here's a move we loved, and here's a move we didn't necessarily love, which we'll touch on here in just a little bit. But DJ Jones and his extension was the move that ESPN loved. And from last season, look, the numbers, they don't stand out to you, but they don't need to, because DJ Jones is the anchor of this defensive line. Now, he's not the centerpiece like Zach Allen, who I've called the focal point of the Broncos defensive line. However, I will say that as a person that takes up space, and the main kind of tree stump in the middle at nose tackle is by far and away DJ Jones's role, which is great. Everybody needs at least one bouncer to prevent everybody from getting inside of the club. So he's the ultimate bouncer for this team. Seth Walder said this about the Broncos offseason. The Broncos ended last season as the best defense in the league by EPA per play and decided to get even better. Signed Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, re-signed DJ Jones, and then used their first-round pick on Jahdae Barron. This defense could be outrageous. Actually, should be outrageous and will be outrageous. And I think the Broncos went this route. The move I like best was bringing back Jones at $13 million per year in an offseason when defensive tackles were highly paid. Jones ranked second in run-stop win rate. It's a mouthful. As an interior defender last season. So again, that sort of, tree stump mentality. Not going to do too much in the statistical category, but will definitely make his presence felt when stopping the run. He was 6th in run-stop push distance, pushed on run plays as a nose tackle, helping shut down the run and forcing opponents to test a secondary that features Defensive Player of the Year, Pat Surtain. All of this to kind of encapsulate what I believe has already been echoed by me and my host before me, Matthew Peterson. I think A- is the perfect grade for the Denver Broncos offseason. I mean, if we take a look from what happened in early March until this point now in middle of July, an A- seems very fair, especially considering a couple years ago, we were talking about one of the worst rosters in the entire NFL. It's done a complete 180. Went from one of the worst to one of the best, highlighted by the defensive front five, which I believe is the best in the NFL. The only other argument you can make is the Philadelphia Eagles. But Cooper, Allen, Jones, Franklin Myers, and Nick Bonito, these guys are nuts. I mean, absolute studs. And the depth is also something that I'm really looking forward to seeing as well. You know, guys like Drew Sanders and Malcolm Roach. So Dondre Tillman as well. I'm very, very pleased in the route of where the Broncos went on defense, and I'm sure that Vance Joseph is just squirming to get back onto the field and show what he can do. So I'm going to ask you this, what feels like, the final time I'll ask you this question before we get into training camp, coming up here in less than a week. Give your final grade of the Broncos 2025 offseason, right? Like what do you call it? Training camp seemingly is the start of the next season. So once training camp begins, it's no longer the offseason. We're getting into the actual NFL season. It's preseason. So give me an A, B, C, D, or F. I'll stake my claim for A-, but let me know in the comment section down below. Now, coming up, the one move that ESPN did not like. And I'll say this. It's not that they didn't love it. It's just they thought the Broncos could have done more. Now, before we do that, my friends, I want to give a major shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Listen, guys, deals don't last forever, but this product right now is pretty hot on Fanatics. This Broncos customizable jersey, which is in a really cool midnight black, and I get it, summer black, you don't want to be too hot, but I got to tell you, if I was going to wear a jersey, it would probably be this one. I mean, it's got that stretchable fabric that you're looking for, the Broncos logo right on the front, and like I said, it's completely customizable. So all you have to do is use the link that I've put in the comments and description of today's video, or go to chatsports.com/Broncos jersey. Either way, if you shop with this link, you will help out and support our channel, which, of course, we get a nice little kickback, but it is a great way for you to sport new gear and help out support our channel. Again, chatsports.com/Broncos jersey. Link in the comments and description of today's video. Seth Walder goes on to talk about the Broncos offseason move that he didn't like. I wanted to see the Broncos do more at wide receiver. Besides counting on Courtland Sutton and Evan Ingram, they are likely hoping for Marvin Mims or Troy Franklin to break out. Perhaps they'll end up making a move for another veteran. Maybe Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper. All right, I'm all for a good hypothetical. Let's explore it. Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper. Now, on our live show on Tuesday, which airs, by the way, every single Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, I named Keenan Allen as a piece that I think the Broncos could still go after if they wanted to add that little cherry on top to completely round out their wide receiver room. And let's take a look at his 2024 statistics. In a room with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, also missing 2 games and getting older, Keenan Allen had a pretty damn good season. 744 yards, averaged 10.6 yards per reception. He had 7 touchdowns. He did have 8 drops, which is one of the cons that I've listed in the pros and cons of signing Keenan Allen. But I got to tell you, for a guy who is in his early 30s, entering that final years of, I don't want to say, I think he's out of his prime. I think that's the best way of saying it, but he's also not completely washed quite yet. I think he's entering that tail years. He's definitely on the back 9 of his career. So the pros and cons of Keenan Allen. Well, you're getting a Pro Bowl veteran and someone with great experience, so he understands how to play in basically every offense. He's got excellent success from the slot, meaning over the middle of the field. He's still going to be that reliable pass catcher that you're looking for. And he's still a very good route runner. One thing that I noticed watching a couple of Bears games last year was that Keenan Allen can still beat some of the best cornerbacks in the league. Now, can't beat him over the top because he lacks basically any of the breakaway speed that he came into the league with, and he wasn't that fast to begin with. His drops definitely got worse in 2024, so his hands have definitely gotten considerably worse, and he's got injury concerns. He's been an injury-prone player basically his entire career. So you'd have to sign him for something cheap, maybe like a $7 million contract, maybe get up to $10 million with incentives, maybe. But I don't even know if the Broncos want to do that. But it is an interesting option to explore. How about Amari Cooper? A player that I'm a little less high on, considering he's kind of like... he's a different wide receiver than Keenan Allen stylistically, but if we were just going off of, okay, veteran wide receiver, who would you rather have right now? It would be Keenan Allen over Amari Cooper. And, you know, in 2023, he was unbelievable. Same with 2022. I mean, he had great seasons. The drops are concerning, but his, what do you want to call it? Productivity dropped off significantly in 2024. I mean, it really fell off a cliff. Now, a lot of that was because of this elbow/hand injury that he's been dealing with or dealt with. A lot of speculation was that he broke his hand and just decided to play through some of it. I don't know what's true and what's not true, but here's what I do know. He's still a really reliable wide receiver, too. So if you plugged and played him on the Broncos, behind Courtland Sutton, he'd automatically be your wide receiver, too. That veteran presence, just like Keenan Allen, that can kind of help mentor those young wide receivers, and he'd be considerably cheaper, probably a 1-year, $5 or $6 million deal. Now, that elbow and hand injury in 2024 led to the production dropping off. Remember, 2023, he was a 1,200-yard wide receiver, and then dropped down to, what was it? Producer Albert, what was it, like 500 yards, 600 yards in 2024? Something like that. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And my question is that maybe he's not as good of a route runner as a Keenan Allen, so how quickly could he learn Sean Payton's style of offense? If you want to throw the stats up there one more time, that'd be cool. Just to kind of highlight just how much that has kind of dropped off. Yeah, 547 yards. Like, that's less than half of what he did in 2023. And he played in 14 games. Now, again, could that have been the injury to his elbow/hand or whatever it was that he was dealing with? Sure. So I'm not saying that next season, wherever he decides to land, that he would end up with only 500 yards, but maybe 700 to 800 is probably right within the realm of possibilities. Either way, you could sign a veteran wide receiver still for considerably cheap, and seeing as the Broncos have almost $16 million in cap space, a 1-year rental deal could make a lot of sense. So I'll ask you this question before we wrap up today's show. Would you sign Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper? Yes or no? I would lean more towards Keenan Allen, so I would say yes for Keenan. Amari, you'd have to do a little bit more of convincing for me at least, but I could get on board if the price was right. But let me know in the comment section down below. Right before we actually end today's show, I do want to give a major thank you to everyone that has already hit subscribe. We hit 37,000, and my goal is to make sure that we get to 38 before the beginning of the NFL season in 2025. So that gives us about a month and a half to get another 1,000 subscribers. Well on our way. As always, like the video. My name is Moose. Be cool.